order. Do we have any, can you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Cooney, Commissioner Snyder,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis,
Here.
Chair Keller,
Here.
Councilmember Sneddon.
Here.
Great, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Chair Keller, there are no changes to the agenda.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment?
There's no general public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the consent calendar, are there any comments from anyone?
Mr. Chair, one comment on item 2. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I read that. I thought, pretty cool. Good job in terms of jumping on that one and making that happen. I hope it works out well.
Yep.
Thank you for that comment.
Thanks.
Are there any public comments?
There is no public comment on the consent calendar.
Okay, can we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Keller.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries.
So on to the first administrative item. We're going to have an update on water demands.
Hi. Good morning, Chair Keller, Commissioners, and Councilmember Sneddon. My name is Jasmine Showers, Water Resources Analyst, and today I'll be presenting the updated water demands. For the presentation today, it'll start with a project background, present the updated baseline demands, talk about potential demand scenarios, and then have time for next steps and questions. Begin with the project background section. And this slide sets the stage for why a reassessment of demands was needed. This shows the city customer water demand from 1985 to 2025. The black line shows moving 12-month production, and the green line shows annual production average. And then if you look at the right side of the graph, you can see the blue line and the orange line. The blue line is from the 2020 Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan demand. And that a key part of that demand analysis assumed that customer drought rebound would be 90% of pre-drought levels. So that lines up to that orange line. And the projection assumed that by 2027, the blue line and the orange line would meet. And as you can see from the past 3 years, if you compare the blue line, the black line, and the yellow line, the green line, you can see that demand tracked really well with that projection. And then in the last 3 years, we've seen demand drop, and the projection continues to rise. So that's why we needed to do a reassessment. The 2020 EUWIMF is still the city's consolidated water supply planning document, and it has a planning horizon of 30 years, so to 2050. The 2020 EUWIMF combined the 2020 long-term water supply plan and the state-required 2020 urban water management plan. Per California Water Code, the city is required to do an urban water management plan every 5 years. The 2020 UWIMF is due July 1st of next year, and this requirement from the state provided a good opportunity to reassess demands. And we have a great project team for this. The city has partnered with Water Systems Consulting, or WSC, and they're preparing the 2025 UWIMF. And then we have Madaus Water Management, or MWM, and they're developing the city's future demand projections. And this is in conjunction with the update to the Water Conservation Strategic Plan. And that will be expanded on more in the next presentation. And also we have Michelle Madaus on the line. She is president and principal engineer of MWM, and she's available if there are any specific questions about the model. And the third partner for this project team is the community development staff and water supply staff. Now we'll talk about baseline demand. So MWM worked with data from community development and water supply staff, and there are a lot of inputs. Highlighting the most significant data inputs here on this slide, we have customer water use. We chose to look at 2021 to 2024. This is a good blend of 2 really wet years and 2 dry or normaler years. And that is evaluated by customer category. Population growth, we have 2020 census data and the Santa Barbara Santa Barbara County Association of Governments growth rates. Employment projections are from the California Employment Department. We have housing growth based on the city's 2035 housing element. Conservation measures are included in the baseline demands, both passive savings from building code and then the city's current water conservation measures. And the final piece is non-revenue water or water loss. And this lines up with the city's real water loss objective of 28.8 gallons per service connection per day. And that's required per water code. And there'll be more information about MWM's model in the next presentation. MWM has developed a least cost planning decision support system, or a DSS model. And this is showing a very simplified model workflow. Going into the base water use, the most important inputs are population and employment growth, and then the recent water use by customer category. For projected demand, we have passive conservation and existing conservation measures, and that's what's included in these baseline demands. And then the next presentation will talk more about new conservation measures. The base water use and projected demand go into demand forecasts, and those are very detailed. The results are by indoor and outdoor use, and then also by customer category. For example, single-family residential, multifamily residential, CII, and water loss. And this graph is setting the stage for presenting the baseline demand. Right now I'm showing actual water use from 2005 to 2025. That's in the gray dotted line. And I highlighted the recent high year, which is 2007, and then the low year is 2017. The shades of blue are the 2020 UWIMF demand projection envelope. So the darkest blue line is the baseline projection from that. And then you can see the upper limit of the demand envelope and then the lower limit. Now I'm going to add in 2025 baseline demand in orange. If you compare the darker blue line to the orange line, you can see that these new baseline demands are much lower than our last baseline demand projection. But they match up really well with the 2020 lower bound. And in that demand analysis, that one showed lower demand rebound and lower job growth and lower population. So those match up really well. And just a note that this actual water use and these projections include recycled water, but they do not include the sales to Montecito or recycled processed water. And this is showing,
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Will there be an envelope developed for that one as well? Yeah.
yes, yeah, that is what I am hoping to receive input from Commission today.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this is still showing the baseline demands, potable baseline demands by customer type from 2025 to 2050. And the takeaway from this slide is to communicate how our demands are spread out by customer type. If you look at the shades of blue, you can see that the bulk of the city's baseline demands are residential. And one thing to note is the lightest blue in each bar is a new category that MWM actually created for the city. This is single-family residential with ADU. So this represents a single-family use parcel with an additional ADU. And this was important because community development is projecting a lot of ADU housing growth. The orange part of each bar is CII water use, And then the 12% for the gray is our water loss. And that again aligns with our state regulation.
I had a question about the water loss. So is that just assuming the state objective, or is that measured water loss?
Yeah, we have to meet it's their real water loss, and we have to meet that standard. It's part of the framework that we actually have to do. We can't borrow from other categories. So it's just assuming that
So
that
that's
we
just
will.
the assumption is
Yeah.
that we make it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And are there plans to reduce that water loss? I'm sure there are measures being taken, so, because that should, hopefully decrease as well.
Yeah, this could be viewed as kind of our cap or maximum
Yeah.
allowed, but we're not trying to meet it. We're not trying to get exactly there. We're trying to get under. There are two probable reasons for our lower baseline demand projections. And the first is slower population growth. This graph is showing the 2020 EU WIMP population projections and then the 2025 UWIMP. And those, as you can see, one of the key data points that we have available now is 2020 census data, and that wasn't available the last time these demand projections were done. So starting from 2020, we have that better starting point now, and that results in much lower population projections than were expected. In 2025, we're actually showing 11% lower water use than what was expected. Or, I'm sorry, 11% lower population.
Population growth?
Population growth, yeah. Yes, this is just for the city. And it includes Mission Canyon. The second probable reason is lower drought rebound. This graph is showing total and residential water in gallons per capita per day, both for total GPCD, which is in purple, and then blue, which is blue is showing residential GPCDs. And again, a key assumption of the past round of demand projections was that drought rebound would happen at 90%. And we just haven't seen that. You can see that even in our recent highest GPCD time, which is in 2021, they weren't close to pre-drought levels. And this further expands on that point. This graph is showing Santa Barbara population, production, and rainfall from 1989 to 2025. The purple line is population, the green line is production, and then the blue bars are rain, and the orangish overlay is periods of drought. And for a long time, production and population tracked very well together. As population went up, production rose to meet it. And you can see that production peaked in 1984, and that's at almost 17,000 acre-feet per year. And then that has gone down over time. And I think it's also interesting to see the last 25 years, population growth has slowed. And right now, production is similar to late 1950s usage. Population in 1958 was less than 56,000 people. So our population has increased by almost 70% since then. And we're still using lower water. This really represents the city's commitment to water conservation. Next, I'll talk about the future water demand envelopes that we're considering. So all demand projections involve uncertainties, and then all inputs in the model involve assumptions. And WSC will work with MWM to develop a demand envelope. The bottom of this slide is showing an example from the demand envelope from the 2020 EU WIMP. And you can see how different inputs affect the demand projections. We have 6 scenarios that we're considering. The first one is higher population growth, and this aligns with the most recent regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA numbers. The city's RENA numbers are 8,000 total units from 2023 to 2031. This is a 95% increase compared to past RENA numbers. And the state acknowledges that total housing needs identified through the RENA process may exceed available resources and the community's ability to satisfy that need. And just a note about what's in the baseline demand, that's actually using the city's 2035 housing element quantified units. And those are lower than RENA numbers. Staff estimated those based on recent development trends and then anticipated redevelopment of the La Cumbre Plaza. So this scenario is likely to increase demand, although most of the growth will be multifamily residential. The second proposed scenario is slower population growth. And this scenario assumes external factors slow growth, and those quantified units from the housing element are extended through 2050 instead of by 2035. This scenario is likely to decrease demands. The third scenario considered is faster job growth, and this applies a 20% increase to the commercial population, and this is likely to increase demands. And then we have slower job growth. In this scenario, there is a 20% decrease applied to baseline demand projection, and this scenario is likely to decrease demands. Fifth, we have climate change impacts. This applies adjustment factors to outdoor water use that correspond with temperature and precipitation changes. And this scenario we'll have to see modeled. It has an unknown impact on demands. And the sixth scenario, since we haven't been seeing drought rebound as expected, this scenario is called demand creep, and it anticipates a gradual increase in per capita water use. And this reflects a return to the recent high water use from 2021. Under this scenario, water demand is projected to rise steadily, reaching 2021 demand levels by 2030. So this is likely to increase demands. And then I have next steps. For the demand envelope, we want to input feedback from the meeting today and then present the 2025 UWIMF demand envelope in February of next year. And then already on Water Commission's schedule is to present a draft of the full 2025 UWIMF in April. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One comment, on number 6, you have demand creep, but in fact, I've been listening to friends and community members about the higher cost of water and their water bills and how they're beginning to even consider more conservation measures. So there could be the opposite, that in fact demand decreases. So maybe as an area to consider that there could be, the economic signal is pretty strong. Water's getting expensive and you have to really pay attention to it. So something to.
Yeah, so water rate scenario.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, are water rates incorporated into this analysis now, or because you could imagine that there's various assumptions of water rates raising even more than we've approved in the next 3 years?
Yeah, and to add on to that, I'm really glad you guys brought that up because we are making obviously some significant increases in rates now. And then at the end of this rate setting period, we had projected, because we did look out 10 years, our hope was to get down to 5 to 6% increases annually after that, just given the amount of capital investment, which is still pretty significant. A lot of factors go into that. A lot of it was based on just what we're seeing in the construction community and just cost of just doing business. But I think that's a great point to, how does that ultimately impact? So I think that's something hopefully we can be working to kind of project out. Because I do think it has an impact when it outpaces inflation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also had a question on the job growth scenarios. What does commercial population mean? Are you talking about CII water
Yes.
use, or?
Yes, exactly. So in the part how it's split up by customer use,
Yeah.
that would be applied to the commercial use part.
And are there assumptions about the nature of job growth, like industries and stuff? Because presumably that would also affect the, water demand.
Yeah, and Michelle Madaus can jump in if needed, but I think the main assumption is that it's still mostly indoor use, regardless of the type of job. It wouldn't be
But
heavy
just that,
landscaping.
like, certain jobs might be more water intensive than others, right, depending on which industry you're talking about.
Yes.
We're not anticipating an AI data center here.
Yeah, right. Like, that's, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, more rivers.
Just a couple of questions. And slide 9 and later on also, you talk about the city's 2035 housing element. I guess I'm just not familiar with the 2035 housing element. They just adopted one this past year.
Yes, this is to my knowledge, this is the most recent one, the 2035
Okay.
housing element.
It's called 2035?
I think so.
Projects out to 20.
Yeah, it projects out to 2035.
Okay. And then on the solar population growth, slide 13, I'd just be curious, and again, when it comes back later, that decrease in the population growth, solar population growth, given the number of units that are going to increase, right? Is there a significant change in the persons per housing unit, which can really affect the population as it goes over time? They're mostly multifamily, lower population per household.
Yeah.
And again, probably later when we come back here, just a little bit more explanation as
Sure.
to why that population growth is being depressed.
Yes. Yeah, the housing element does predict that at about 70% of growth will be multifamily residential. So those have the lowest per person in the units. But thank you.
When doing these kind of model projections, obviously there's no time in history that look like any of these demand projections. And so do you come up with this envelope and then fit something to it that would actually match some type of like seasonal variation? Or is that's not where the industry is yet?
Michelle, are you able to take that question?
I knew that was going my way. Good morning. I'm Chair Keller in Water Commission. I'm happy to be back. I've been working on water demands from the city since the 2000 original water supply plan. It's you. Yeah, I think you spoke well that it's been an interesting ride recently. There's a lot going on. Not only have we had COVID, we had a drought. We hadn't even finished COVID before we hit the drought. So then we had COVID drought. Then after the drought, we had a wet year, right? And then we had a dry year. So we've had a mix of a lot of going on. So water demand is very dynamic. It does respond to these external forces, I'm going to call them. And the external forces can be up or down, right? So in a drought, you're going to see, changes in your system. In a wet year, people are going to irrigate less. So those are all upwards or downward pressures. That's why we have the green arrows, going up or down. Climate change, like you said, is an interesting one because it can go either way. We do think that it will have a combination effect. I can just kind of give one example. So say you have, and this will kind of just make it pictorial, hopefully in your mind, of things working dynamically in your system. So I'm going to zoom ahead to the year 2030, just so we can put something in time. So in the year 2030, like you said, your rates have gone up. We've also had, conservation legislation. Those will be more in the forefront. We have non-functional turf, that we're trying to remove. We're going to have more ADUs because those are coming from the Planning Commission. We could have a change in weather. We will have a change in population. Those could go to multifamily. Those could go to ADUs, right? So you see where I'm going with this. They're all stacking. And then on top of that, the climate can be either more wet or more dry. Most recently, we've just seen more extremes, right? So the droughts are getting closer together and more severe, and then the wets are more wets, right? They're more intense, more extreme. So that's what we're trying to break them out and isolate what's really going on. In terms of industry standard, we're seeing this all over the place. So we work all over the country, work internationally as well. We're seeing per capitas drop, like you said, just globally due to efficiency, due to, cost, due to lifestyle changes. A lot of people don't garden as much. All of that is baked into your demands. So my life, every time I work with you, is getting more complicated as things keep getting added. Variables is one way of thinking of it, because your water demands are ultimately a result of all of that. The challenge recently has been, even with all that, the biggest pressure change has been these external forces. COVID was large. The droughts, all these things are external to just everyday life in the city, but they're impactful. And I think that was the biggest driver. We didn't see a drought rebound, and there was a lot else going on in that same time period. And we saw it everywhere else too. It's not just the city. I work up and down California, born and raised in California. I'm up here in Northern California, but I've seen that nobody rebounded from the drought. It wasn't just you. And so then there's been a lot of studies about that as well. But it's all that in a blender, everything I just said. So it's not one thing, it's a lot of things. So welcome to demand forecasting. It's been an interesting ride. It will continue to be an interesting ride. We're working with you. That's why I added ADUs in this time, because it gives me more flexibility. Someone asked earlier about the housing. The housing is changing. ADUs has a smaller household size. Right? It's not going to be your standard single family home. It's smaller. You're going to have less people in it. So and we're going more multifamily. So that will be a future change. So it's a lot of words. I'm going to stop there, but that just kind of gives you the overall of what's going on here and how we're trying to make an envelope that addresses those things. And then we can see the impact of them and give you a range, because in reality, it's going to be a range. Of factors, and we end up hitting the low one, but I mean, we could have easily hit the high one too, depending on what had happened in the last couple of years. So we just had a lot of downward pressures all at the same time, and so that's why we didn't rise. So sorry, that was a lot, but hopefully that kind of helps unpack all those slides and all those graphs and just kind of a mental picture.
Thank you, Michelle. This is Dakota Corey, Water Supply and Services Manager. I just wanted to jump in really quick to provide a little context on how we'll use the baseline demand versus the demand envelope. So the baseline demand will be our kind of official demand that goes into our planning for the next 5 years. We get a chance to update it every 5 years with the Urban Water Management Plan. So if we're showing that we're quite a bit off again, like we were this 5 years, we can adjust again. But then that envelope is kind of like our bookends. It gives us it's a little bit of a sensitivity analysis. It gives us an idea of what are the biggest driving factors to demand. Does population have a bigger driver on our demand than economic growth, for example? And then it also, again, just kind of gives us the bookends. So we think this is our path forward, but it could be anywhere in between on the envelope. So that's how we'll be using it as we track demands and supplies moving forward.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I was interesting the external factors comment, because what I've been kind of surprised at the last couple of years is both the wet and the dry both have led to lower demands, which I think is not necessarily what we anticipated at the outset. And I would love to hear a little bit more about the statewide trends, because you mentioned, Michelle, that this is a broader trend. This is not unique to Santa Barbara in terms of not seeing the drought rebound that we expected. And then I was also just wondering about AMI and how the impacts of AMI are factored into this. Both, I know we've seen a lot of water demand reductions because of implementation of AMI, but also thinking to the new housing developments that'll be that will be integrated.
Thank you
Yeah,
for the
do you want me to answer that, or do you want to take that one?
Go for it.
Okay, so I heard two questions. We'll address them one at a time. So the first one is statewide trends. So yes, everyone across the state is seeing the impacts of COVID. I'm going to call it the COVID shadow, the drought shadow, the drought. We all kind of in the state lived through the same experience. So we all had the same change in per capita. At the same time, we're starting to see the fruits of a lot of years of water conservation. Cal Green, is starting to kind of also kick in. We've had enough development built more efficiently that's starting to kind of come into play. So it was just up and down the state. Nobody rose. Everybody kind of stayed flat. by and large, you saw our demand is kind of flatline. It's like, that's interesting. Everybody's looks like that too. There's very few that don't. I mean, some areas are growing faster, some areas are newer or older. That all comes into play in different weather, of course. But on average, the state water use remains steady as a whole. Obviously, we're growing, but I'm talking like per person, it's staying steady. But on average, it was great in the sense a lot of people met all their targets. There was targets running around the 2020. We all cleared them. Like very, very few weren't in compliance with that. So overall, people were low. Everyone assumed our economy was going to keep growing. We were going to keep going up. Everyone else had demand forecasts that were climbing, and pretty much we stayed steady, which in a sense is nice because it makes it a little less pressure on water demand throughout the state and allows us economic productivity with more water. So it wasn't a bad thing. It was just a surprising thing because you can't really predict everything that actually happened in the last 5 years. That was an interesting ride. I got a lot of phone calls. What's the pandemic going to do to my water use? I was like, I don't know. I haven't had a pandemic before, and so that was an interesting, experience. You guys were okay. Those were balanced economically and geographically, residentially, were okay. Those were all commercial, got impacted very severely, and they're even much, much lower and still haven't even climbed even further. So not only do they not rebound from the drought, but they're low, and a lot of people haven't still recovered.
Michelle, the impacts from the pandemic, this shadow, it seems to be more of the financial. Because I mean, when I'm talking to other agencies, they're doing double-digit increases as well to kind of address the construction costs, labor costs, all these things. So the shadow that I think we're talking about is really the increase in the cost of water and wastewater service, which is kind of creating this pressure to use less as well.
It also impacted growth because labor costs and material costs also increased, and that slowed down development. So that kind of globally kind of hit the entire state as well. That even hit AMI too, the meter and meter availability. That's a whole nother story. But those costs and economics do flow over into changes for water demand as well. Because if we're not building more units and we're not adding more population, then you're going to see that in your water demand as well. So that kind of is the economic flavor that kind of goes along with everything else.
I think in terms of the second question, the AMI, we'll be talking about water conservation. Sorry, I think in terms of the AMI question, we'll see in the next presentation, water conservation measures. So maybe we should wait until then so we can move on.
I think that's a great idea because we did address it. So I'm going to hold that. And I heard your question. It was AMI, how's it going to impact? How's it going to impact our water use? Right. It's beautiful because I've already got that in the next presentation. So I will absolutely hold on that. And that's what I love you because that's exactly what I was just going to say. Hey, can we hold on to that? Because I have some conversations on that coming up.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this or shall we move on? Yes, one more.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question on the difference between population growth rates and absolute number population in percentages, if you could just sort of speak to that.
So our starting point is from the 2020 census data. So that's what we're saying is our known population. And then the projected growth is using growth percentages from SB-CCAG, or the County Association of Governments. So that's applied over the planning horizon. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So shall we move on to the water conservation strategic plan update?
Chair Keller, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yes, sorry. Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment at
Thank
this
you.
time.
All right, Chair Keller and members of the Water Commission, Councilmember Sneddon. My name is Madeline Wood. I'm the Water Conservation Analyst. I will also be joined again virtually by Michelle Madaus of Madaus Water Management to talk you through our Water Conservation Strategic Plan update. We'll be going over a background of the technical analysis, an overview of the decision support system model. We'll talk about the measure screening process, which is our current step, as well as our next steps, and answer any questions. So in 2020, we developed our Water Conservation Strategic Plan, which is pictured there on this slide. and that's a technical analysis that enables the city to project long-range water demands, as you just heard about, identify attainable conservation goals, develop strategies, and prioritize conservation measures over a planning horizon. The modeling was first done by the city in 2010 to support the long-term water supply plan. It was updated in 2014 in response to extreme drought, and most recently in 2020 to create the strategic plan. So in this modeling, we take both current and new conservation measures and evaluate them for cost effectiveness based on the avoided cost of additional water supplies. So essentially, is it more cost effective for us to implement this conservation measure to reduce demand, or is it more cost effective for us to develop additional water supplies to meet that demand? So we're currently updating our conservation plan to ensure that the conservation program is still cost effective and supports long-term water reliability. Also to meet the new state water use efficiency objectives and to utilize new tools like automated metering infrastructure, or AMI. This effort's also supporting the development of the 2025 Urban Water Management Plan with demand projections, as you heard about in the previous presentation. And we're also incorporating the recommendations put forth in the water affordability study that was conducted with the Alliance for Water Efficiency in 2024, and utilizing equity as a conservation measure evaluation criteria. This effort's being developed with Madaus Water Management and uses their DSS, or Decision Support System model. And with that, I will pass it over to Ms. Madaus to provide an overview of the modeling exercise.
Thank you, Madeline, and hello again, Chair Keller and the Water Commission. Happy to be back. So yeah, we are, I can't see the slides, Madeline, just so you know, but I can continue on if you guys can see the slides. I have a copy. So the DSS model is really data-driven. Madeline, mentioned this. You also heard this from Jasmine in the previous discussion. The good news is by having so much information and working on your system, for the last decade and a half, we have been learning like how the water system is reacting and what factors are important, and hence the scenarios we were talking about a moment ago. So it's definitely building off the previous efforts. So the way that it works is we get a water demand projection. Then we break things down by end use. You might say, what's an end use? I'm going to answer that in the next slide, but it's basically goes all the way to the end of the pipe. This is important, especially when we talk about conservation, because you really want to be able to model at a detailed level. Then we include the impact of conservation on the end uses. So if we're going to replace, a washer, clothes washer, or if we're going to take out a toilet, or if we're going to change some landscaping, that basically goes all the way to that change, and then we roll it back up. So every single year, the model is dynamic. Every single year, we're making changes to your system, and then we roll that back up to get a water demand, in addition to changing your housing development, in addition to changing all these other things. We do use all that. Then we move ahead to a benefit cost analysis. We do include costs of all the conservation measures. We do include staff and all that actually makes the conservation program work. And then we compare that to the cost of water in the city. And then we end up coming out with the total water demand reductions based on any activities we're doing through conservation and or through other activities like new development standards. Next slide, please. So end use modeling is a basic modeling type. There are a few different ones. This is one of the most robust and also most popular. It basically, like I said, this is just a visual, goes all the way to the end of the pipe. So you take your total consumption and then you break it into different water uses around the city. I'm just giving an example of single family, but we have, you could do a similar graphic for multifamily or commercial. Then we take that bucket of water, we're going to break it in half, and you're going to have an indoor half and an outdoor half. This starts becoming really important as you want to change things. So your landscape, your toilets, or your showers, that allows me the flexibility to change things at a very detailed level, all the way down to individual accounts. this also gives me flexibility if we're talking climate change to change just the landscape piece or other elements around your service area. So it's very detailed, but it's very flexible and customizable, which is great when we actually need to, make things dynamic and react to things going on in your service area. Next slide, please. So the DSS model, we've been using it in the city for a while now. But as it came up a little bit earlier in the earlier presentation, we have done over 300 service areas worldwide. We tend to work with people over long durations because, like we said, it's a story, and we like to follow, how things are changing over time. We are a California-based firm, and so most of our work is in California, but we do work all over the world. We developed the model back in 1999, but we continually are adding new things. It is very customizable. It's been peer-reviewed and adopted and approved by the California Urban Water Conservation Council originally, which is now known as CAWEP, or California Water Efficiency Partnership. So other people use it and have approved it as a solid model. It definitely has different conservation scenarios that allows us to change things, add things like AMI, which didn't exist in the beginning. So it's very flexible and very adaptable. We custom build each new conservation measure, which is great. It allows us to kind of create things as things change. And it definitely includes the state and local codes. Like I said, new things, that's new for this round. It was just coming into play when we did our work in 2020, but now that we have the regulations and the individual elements, that was a big driver for the changes in addition to AMI. So we're going to call this Conservation 2.0. Conservation 2.0 includes the regulations from the state in addition to your AMI system and utilizing that information, which we didn't have before. Next slide, please. So this is a visual. Jasmine mentioned this a little bit. So this is kind of just showing you if you're like graphics. She had it in words, I have it in graphics. So we take the individual data from the individual customer categories. They feed in and we make a base water use. From that base water use, then we can add things. We can add population and employment growth. We can add drought recovery, which we had last time. We don't have this time. Or any other things that we needed to add, we could add or subtract. We can modify it as needed. And we will be doing that in some of our demand envelope scenarios. Then we have a projected demand, and from there you can add in passive conservation. So passive conservation is a code or CalGreen or things like that, that even if we didn't have a city program, you would still get more efficient over time. And then we have continuing conservation measures run by the city, also known as active conservation. And we're adding in the new planned conservation on top of that. And when we're all done, we get to the right and we get indoor and outdoor customized water demands. So we are going to start with a baseline water demand, and that's what we were presenting today. And then from there, we're going to add on those water demand envelopes and scenarios on top of it. And baseline water demand, just for context, is kind of what we think is most probable, or just our base demand. And then from there, we're going to modify things and see what happens and create a range. All right, so how do we do? The rest of the presentation is going to focus on water conservation and the measures that we selected for, this updated version. So we kind of did a screening process. This is a standard process we do with most of the agencies work with. It's backed up by the American Water Works Association Manual M52. It's a standardized approach. We help write that manual for the country. But basically, we go in and we have over 100 measures right now. I think the list is 132 measures. The great thing is we have a lot of options. The bad thing is we have a lot of options. So we need some way to screen that down to the most probable things that would work well in the city. So we call this a traffic light approach. So a green lighted measure is something that's automatically included for further analysis. That could be something the city's already doing, right? Or something that's working well and we want to keep it. So we're automatically going to analyze it. The yellow measures are included as they passed, but we want to maybe look at them a little bit further. They're kind of in the middle. And then we have the red measures. The red measures are like, what? It's not going to work here. It's not climate appropriate for this city, or we've tried it before, or there's just a better measure available, that we just don't want to pursue that further. So this process takes a large number of measures, or measure library, if you want to think about that, and whittles it down to those that are going to be analyzed. just because something is analyzed doesn't mean you actually have to implement it as a city. It just means we're going to model it, put benefits, put costs, put time into spending our, energies on ones that we think are going to be the most realistic or feasible in the area. So I'm going to turn it back to Madeline, and she's going to talk a little bit about the different scoring criteria and how we arrived at a list that we are analyzing right now.
Thank you, Michelle. So as staff, we selected these 4 scoring criteria displayed on the screen. Water savings potential, diversity, equity, and inclusion, service area match, and additional service area benefits. And this differs from our previous modeling efforts, as the measure selection process in the past was just based on cost effectiveness, both at the city level and the customer side. We gave each of these 4 equal weight, and we ranked the measures on a scale of 1 to 5 for each. So for example, a score of 1 for additional service area benefits would indicate a neutral effect, but a score of 5 indicates a significant positive additional service area benefit. And these criteria help ensure that recommended measures not only save water, but also provide some broader community and environmental value. So here is our list. These are the measures selected for further analysis in the DSS model. The ones in black text are our existing programs. Some of them should look familiar to you. The ones in blue text are proposed new measures. So I won't go through all the existing programs, but they cover the suite of both what we call our foundational programs, such as the AMI portal and education and outreach, as well as our suite of rebates available for our diverse customer base. For the new programs, I'll touch on them briefly for an introduction. So Measure 15 would be an in-depth irrigation evaluation in which we could contract with a certified irrigation auditor to provide an evaluation of large landscape irrigation systems and then provide recommendations for efficiency. Measure 16 is a leak repair rebate. A common barrier for high-burdened households is to even get the cost of a plumber to come out, much less the repair on top of that. Measure 17 is a direct install toilet retrofit to replace the old high flush toilets out in our service area. And we could potentially see economies of scale by partnering with the gas utility, as they already have existing contracts with plumbers who are replacing hot water efficiency fixtures, and we could possibly throw some toilets on the truck for them. That's another one that could be income qualified program as well. And then Measure 18 are pre-rinse spray valves, which is a handheld high-pressure nozzle that's common in restaurants to rinse dishes before further dishwashing. They're pretty simple to install, and they have quick savings, and they boost cleaning performance as well. So our next steps are to take those 18 measures, put them through the DSS model to estimate the costs, the savings, and the cost effectiveness for each measure. This will lead to a ranked list of options to analyze budget and staffing levels needed to support implementation. And then once that analysis is complete, we'll be coming back to Water Commission with our draft Water Conservation Strategic Plan, and we expect that'll be in spring 2026 for review and input before finalization. And we are here for any questions.
Thank you very much. One comment, in terms of the rebates, generally I think it's a great idea, but I did find recently an experience where I was installing a heat pump water heater, and there's a rebate, it's a very significant rebate, and so the cost for the install was much, much higher than what it really ended up being, because the contractors are using the fact that there's a rebate to raise the price. And it was several thousands of dollars higher than what it really should cost. And so we have to be careful that we are not incentivizing the contractors to raise their prices by using the rebates, because it's a very negative cycle there. So I think we should be careful with that.
I really appreciate that comment, because that was what we ran into with SLIP. We providing a $2,000 rebate, and all of a sudden everything jumps up $2,000. So, yeah.
This is really cool to see. Thank you for sharing it. I had, One question of just, this is a random one, but shower head rebates, that's something I didn't see on the list? Was that something that was considered, or just we feel like was not worth it, or?
So during periods of drought, we would often do showerhead swap out events or have them come into the counter and swap them out. But due to the plumbing code, you can drive across state lines, but it's very hard to find an inefficient showerhead. So it sort of got to the point that we felt like a plumbing store, and there was probably not a lot of juice for the squeeze at that point, because you can't in California go out and buy an inefficient showerhead. Yeah. So we did a lot of it in the 90s and early 2000s. With our Flume residential end uses of water study, we could see very low showerhead amounts. Typically, also what we've seen through those studies is people, even if they have a shower head that reduces the flow, they tend to take the same amount of time in the shower and sometimes increase it. So there's maybe not a whole lot of juice to squeeze out of showers at this point.
That's good to know, thank you. And I love the idea of a direct install program for the toilets. I think that could be really beneficial, and especially getting to the lower income populations or multifamily housing. And then just a comment, this list, it would be helpful, I think, to bucket it a little bit as we move forward to considering it, because I'm looking at it like it'd be helpful to understand okay, outdoor versus indoor, or behavioral, or just kind of understand the different mechanisms, and even okay, this is a rebate versus this is something that's more engaged with staff, and just understanding the different avenues and categories.
You definitely think like I think. That is definitely what we do. And as soon as we analyze them and pick them into programs, we will definitely do that. It's standard. If you look at our RAS reports, we absolutely do that, and we plan on doing that this time as well. And I didn't know if you wanted more on AMI. I can talk about that now, or if you got your answer, your question, you can let us know.
Yeah, I would love to circle back to that. And more, it was around the demand forecasting piece and how AMI gets worked into that.
Madeline, do you want to take a crack at it, or do you prefer?
No, you can handle that if you want to talk about it from demands and then also the modeling too.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So AMI is great. I'm excited. The city has AMI. It gives me a lot more information. I've been doing this for decades. So I used to have to do water demand forecasting, even the city, with one dot for 30 days or 60 days. That's what I had to work with. That's kind of limiting, especially even with leaks. You only find out after the fact, right? But now that we have AMI, it's a powerful tool. It helps me in demand forecasting because I can see not only water use trends, but I can see hourly trends. That helps when we start analyzing landscape over the summer or in droughts. We can see individual customers. We do have a copy of AMI data, and so we have been analyzing that. It helps us in 3 ways. First of all, it gets us to know your customers better. What are they actually doing? What are they actually day by day, hour by hour? How are trends and things being active before a conservation activity, after, during a drought? When are they turning their controllers on? When are they turning them off? You can identify a controller because it has actual peaks in there. An irrigation cycle is very high. Water use, for a toilet, is very low. We've gotten sophisticated enough to be able to tell that. The cities participated in excellent studies with Flume and others, and also using AMI to be able to tell that. Now I have a lot of information. The more information you give me, the better my estimates can become. So that's one way it folds into demand forecasting. I get better. Basically, it's on assumptions, like Jasmine mentioned. The more information you give me, the better the assumptions can become. On the conservation side of things, it allows us to make better assumptions for savings, right? We assume you go do an activity, you save a certain amount of water. Now I can actually prove it. I can go to specific accounts. I can say, okay, this group of customers did this, direct install toilet rebate program. This is what they were using before. This is what they were using after. And I can literally come up with the value of water savings instead of just assuming an industry standard or just a standard based on the toilet. That gets us to further refining all of our assumptions in the model. Because again, we go all the way to the end of the pipe, right? So if I can go all the way down and use real AMI data, I can start becoming pretty sophisticated on my assumptions. And it also helps the city team. And third thing is it helps the city team target their programs. We can just, instead of guessing or just offering it, we can turn around and target. We can target the high water users. We can target people who have leaks and go fix leaks, faster. It becomes a very dynamic system and a more efficient system, so we can use city resources wisely. And so just everybody gets it. Now we're like, okay, we should reach out to these people. They have a leak, or we should reach out to them. They're a high water user, and let's try and get them their water use down. So I'm excited for Conservation 2.0 is what we're calling that. And it absolutely is going to use AMI to the best of its ability. So more to come on that. I'm really excited. So thank you for approving it. Thank you for getting it, and we intend to use it in demand forecasting and also in conservation.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, so this is, I think, phenomenal. I love this. It's more granular, more user-focused, and that I love this modeling by the end use of the pipe. I had a question about how that comment that before we just used a cost effectiveness model, and now these new 4 criteria, love them, love the new criteria. Question specifically about the last one, the additional service area benefits, and these all sound really great. Stormwater management, habitat creation, energy savings, or educational opportunities. And so I guess I'm wondering, in the list that were selected for future analysis, if there are any that fit in that additional service area benefits, or could there be? Like, so maybe the total scoring didn't push it into the considered, but are there any that are like specifically for those?
Yeah, so Councilmember Sneddon, on just glancing at the list, some of the ones that ranked high in that additional service area benefits were the sustainable lawn replacement rebate. So that's number 7, because we offer a stacked rebate with the Creeks Division. We focus on removing the lawn and putting in low water use landscaping and irrigation. But if you also direct rainwater into it, then the Creeks Division adds additional dollars per square foot. So the maximum is $5 a square foot if you go lawn to rain garden, as we call it. So that one has a significant additional benefit because it will capture stormwater and it will reduce runoff and pollutants into the ocean, and as well as create habitat. And then the mulch delivery rebate below that, diverting the green waste that comes from the landfill, putting it back into the community, back into the soil. There's additional benefits there. Anything with hot water is also going to save gas, electricity, energy. So those are the ones that also would rank high for that. So it really runs a gamut. There's a lot on this list that ranked quite high for that.
Okay, so I think now I'm understanding that things were ranked high for that, because I see like number 2 is public education. It's just that the ones that might have fallen in that category we're already doing. So. Is that
Some of them on the list also ranked high. So pre-rinse spray nozzles, that's hot water. That's going to save energy.
Okay.
It's also reduced dishwasher loads and cycles of washing in the dishwasher when they do the pre-rinse. The direct install high efficiency toilet retrofit, that one we were looking at income qualified customers and ways that we could partner with community organizations. So even the ones in blue have additional service area benefits as well. So these are the ones that all passed muster, these 18 on the list.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just love this new way of identifying what the value is beyond just the cost effectiveness, which is also an addition. But love this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Do we have any public comment?
Chair Keller, we do not have any public comment at this time.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our third item on the administrative agenda is the wastewater system annual report for fiscal year 2025.
As Mr. Welch gets settled, I just wanted to We've got a interesting presentation for you. We are looking, as we go through this, looking for feedback because we're tapping into Story Map, which is a GIS function, and so it makes it more of an interactive presentation. And we do hope at some point here we'll be able to turn this presentation around every year and put it on our website because a lot goes into this. We feel like this is going to be a great tool talking with our regulators as well. So a lot of exciting work has been put in here, and I just want to say kudos to the whole team that worked on this. A lot of folks had no experience going into this, and you'll, I think, be very impressed by what they were able to learn and put to good use.
Thanks for the introduction, Mr. Hagmark. My name's Thomas Welch. I'm the wastewater system manager. I have 2 superintendents with me and a couple other team members. I'll introduce them as I need their assistance through the presentation. So I have Mr. Zambrano. He's our wastewater collection superintendent, and Mr. Muntz, our wastewater treatment superintendent. Like Mr. Hagmark stated, this presentation took place of our 80-page report last year, so a lot less creative writing and more a little graphic design. So that was really impressed with the skills of my team that I didn't know they had, and so we pulled in a lot of it. There's video images and new GIS content that we haven't had available in the past. And so just to shout out, yesterday was GIS Day. I have my pin. And so today is also GIS Day as we use the story map. And so Mr. Ward, for our water system manager, presented in this format last year, and it looked really intriguing. And so I'm happy to continue with that process. So let's go beneath the surface here. So in addition to just the wastewater system, there's a whole network of infrastructure buried beneath the ground in Santa Barbara, including our sewer system. I'll be focusing on. So there's over 27,000 private connections. This is just a little graphic from our GIS showing our private connections in town, connecting to 257 miles of sewer system, publicly owned sewer system, including our 7, those are flowing to our 7 lift stations located throughout the city, and then all converging to El Estero Water Resource Center. And I like this aerial, so we'll let this pan just for a sec. And just as a reminder, El Estero's tagline is enhancing Santa Barbara's quality of life, and just the whole wastewater team is trying to embody that goal. So let's let this. So this is on the right side. You can see a little video. This is one of our sewer cleaning trucks, and you can see one of our staff members cleaning a sewer. That's the high pressure reel on the front of the truck, and they're pushing that reel. We actually have a video of that in action in the pipe. And then on this little clip, there's a crew doing a push camera inspection. So within the city, we use what we call basins. So they're kind of sewer sheds, similar to watersheds in the community. So we break up the city into 44 different basins, and they really align with the geography of the city, because as the wastewater flows downhill, it's all by gravity. It follows the natural topography of the community. So those are our 44 basins. And then throughout the city, we have as small as 4-inch to as large as 42-inch. I just learned about the 4-inch pipes recently. There are still some cast iron 40-inch pipes in the system, not very much, but those are probably on our replacement schedule, because you will not be able to line that through rehabilitation. So this shows our 4 to 8-inch. This shows our 4 to 8-inch sewer mains. So mass majority of our mains are under 8-inch. We're layering in our 10 to 15-inch mains. So these are some of our medium-sized trunk mains. And one of the things that, just pointing out, we're not showing the Mission Canyon service area, because that is owned and operated by the county, but that flow does come to the city. So we're just showing the city-owned pipes. And then this shows our 16 to 42-inch mains. So really, we talk about the system being between 6 and 42 mostly, but the majority of it is under 8-inch. There's very little larger diameter systems, which makes our maintenance much more intense than a system that has more trunk mains, because the smaller mains require more maintenance. So our 7 lift stations, I'm going to just breeze through some of these pretty quickly as we go around the city. So this is Camino de la Luz up on the Mesa. Linda lift station near Douglas Preserve. Braemar lift stations down by Royal Borough Beach. This is being rehabilitated currently. We'll have some photos of that. Talent lift station over in the Samarkand area. View Lucero on the west end of town with Linda Road, or sorry, La Colina right nearby. And then up in the hills, we have Schofield lift station. And so a lot of these stations, as you scroll through, you can see the little photos. It's mostly buried. Some of them just have a panel up above ground, and so they're very nondescript around the community. But they're necessary parts of our infrastructure. So construction at Braemar progressed pretty significantly during the last fiscal year. They had temporary bypass pumps running for quite a while. They did a lot of work. And most of the work was focused on some of the yard piping, the underground buried infrastructure. And I'll just click through a couple photos. This is one of the city-owned bypass pumpers. And here's the station, and there's some work. This is right along Cliff Drive between the roundabout and the entrance to Arroyo Borough. So it is a little bit tight traffic area there. There's another image of that. A big effort. We came to Water Commission back in July about updating our sewer system management plan. This is a state mandated document. We went through an audit process and update, and council approved it at the end of July, allowing us to submit by our August 2nd deadline. And one of the requirements is we post it on the city website, and so we do have links included for when we publish parts of this presentation online in the future. The first part of our collection system management activities that I'm going to go over is our closed circuit TV inspection program. We did a major 3-year project to CCTV the entire system. There's a lot of benefits to doing CCTV. They're listed on there. It allows us to find problems before they cause spills, and allows us to find problems that we can start scheduling out for our capital program. So we have a couple dashboards to show you. So this first dashboard outlines our the inspection program, and as it loads, so we started in fiscal year 2022 with our large diameter pipes, and then in 23 we focused on the north part of town, then the east and west parts of town, and then downtown. One of the benefits of this process was that we were able to identify almost 200 events where the contractor found a blockage building, and we were able to clean it reactively and avoid a problem. So that was, and we do have some photos included in here. So if you don't know what a root ball looks like, I'll pop this up. So that's a root ball. And this is what we would code as medium roots. So there's roots coming in at some of the joints in this one. When we go further into the presentation, we have a video of before and after cleaning roots. Sorry, there it is. Why isn't it coming back? Yeah, a little terrifying when it's not doing what I want it to do right now. Why aren't you going back? There you go. To open a new tab. All right, a little bit. Oh, your mouse is bouncing on me. Here we go. Yeah, thanks. You change the window and it jumps. There it goes. Here we go. Back to where we were. All right, so, sorry, it's lagging just a little bit for me here. There we go, flow on. So we finished our inspections, and some of the results were not surprising. We have a pretty old system. It's probably over 60 years old on average. So when we inspect the pipes, they do what's called a PACP score, and that's a standardized inspection protocol. And so every defect, connection, thing they see in the video, they code. So there's grade 1 through 5 defects when they score them. And then when we look at it and we try and aggregate the data, what we do is we say, what was the worst defect on that pipe? And so we use that to kind of code the entire pipe. So when we look at our system, we found that 6% of our system has condition 5 ratings. So I'll click right here. So these are all the pipes in our system that have the worst defects that that can be identified. It could be one defect, it could be multiple defects across the main. We look at our condition 5s and 4s are kind of our high priority, and when we start adding those two together, we're close to 50% of our system needs rehab. And so this is something that I've been speaking with Mr. Hagmark about, and with the water department, they've increased their replacement goal. Our current replacement goal target is 1% per year. As we continue to analyze this data, that might be something we might need to reevaluate for the collection system. The water system is investing to 2% per year. One of the great things that with this data, though, is we're able to look at some of these defects, and we can filter through them. So if there's one condition 5 defect, that we might be able to rehabilitate that main and get it back into a good condition rating just by doing one single point repair. We don't necessarily need to replace the entire main. And so with all the data we've compiled, we have a whole list of potential point repair mains that would, if we fix that one defect, it would make the whole pipe in good condition. We have a video. I'll just play this briefly so you can see what that looks like. So the camera is panning through. When the operator finds a defect, they'll pan up and zoom in on it. So that's a fractured pipe. I'm scared if I make it bigger, it's going to freeze my presentation. So I apologize for the small window there. But yeah, so they pan through, and then as they're panning and driving, they're also coding all the defects into a database. So here you can see an offset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is this pipe's very dry.
I was going to say that. I was like,
Yeah. So we can pan through. We have a couple other photos. This is a buckling wall. Here's an offset joint, completely offset, a broken pipe, and then that's our video. So we finished our three-year plan. We have baseline data now for all the condition ratings for all the pipes. Our goal is to now go and, starting in FY27, do a full reinspection of the system to validate all these scores. So we'll start in FY27 with these basins, and so they're kind of color-coded. The green is 27, the kind of beige is 28, and the yellow is 29. The purple on the mesa is FY30, and then we'll finish the downtown area in FY31. And so we're trying to mimic the same pattern we did in the past. So while we're addressing the condition 5, high priority repairs as quickly as we can get to them and as budget allows, we'll also reevaluate those. And one of the things that we found is a lot of condition 4 defects. Let's say it's a fracture on the on the top of the pipe. It's above the flow line, and so it's not a huge risk of exfiltration. Could be a source of infiltration, but it's not a lot of those defects. If it's like a fracture, it's surrounded by soil, so the pipe's held in place, and so we want to validate that those defects aren't getting worse and are stable. And so that's why we're going to do that reinspection. And if we're seeing damage continue to progress, then we could elevate the priority of those repairs. We're also, so this is really great to have this first inspection data, but we do want to reinspect in 5 years to track some of the concerning issues, but not emergency issues over time. So we're going to get into our maintenance program. Sorry. Oh, thank you.
I've got a question,
Yeah.
if I could ask it. So at a 1% replacement rate, how long would it take us to tackle categories 4 and 5, assuming that they all needed to be replaced and they were really serious?
Well, and that's why it gets down to, do we have to rehabilitate the entire main, or can we do a point repair? And so a point repair, we would just dig up that section of pipe, and we might be able to do that. That would be a lot more cost effective than having to line the entire main or rehabilitate that. So I don't have a timeline yet, but if we had to rehab it, 6% of the system would take 6 years to do, because if we're only doing 1% a year.
Yeah, Commissioner Young, I think that's a great question, and I think I'm hoping a year from now we're going to have some answers for you, because I think that's what we're going to be working on. We've set rates now through 2028, but we're looking at, now that we have this information, what is it telling us? How do we need to adapt the program? Does it need to be 1.5? Does it need 2? What does it need to be in order to, I think, actively get after what we now know is in our infrastructure. So we will be digging into that this next year, and hopefully when we come back, we'll have some more information on that. I think it's also important, and we'll talk a little bit about it. This is what our infrastructure looks like. The private infrastructure matches probably what we're seeing here as well. So big investments on both sides when it comes to sewer infrastructure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just want to dive into our cleaning program a little bit. So we have several cleaning programs. Our main goal is to clean right now the system every about 15 months is what we're trying to target. And there are some mains that require a little more attention. And so we have what we call our accelerated root control program, is one of our more aggressive cleaning programs. And then we also have our chemical root control program that I'll get to shortly. But I'm going to click first on ours. This is a main impacted by pretty significant root growth. So you can see the roots dangling in from the joint there. And so the operator pans down so he doesn't get the camera dirty as he goes through. So that's why they're doing that. But as you see, there's another joint with additional roots. Luckily, these roots seem pretty thin, so material would hopefully flow in. But you can get root balls that will actually cause an entire blockage. We have video post-cleaning. So the camera is now following the jetter, our jetter nozzle. And so the nozzle's already made the entire trip from the opposite manhole to the camera, and now the camera's following it. And this is the exact same main post-cleaning. The roots are completely shredded by the rotating nozzle, and this is just water pressure. This is about 3,000 psi of water and with a rotating nozzle, and the pipe looks very clean after what this one's called is the warthog nozzle makes it through there.
This sounds great, but how because trees will have roots pretty quickly.
Yeah.
How long does it last, and how much do we have to go back in?
So our ARCP, these are usually getting cleaned at least annually. And we do have some high frequency mains that I'll get into afterwards as well.
I think where we'd like to get is to every 3 years. That would be great. We're not there. I think our average, as you mentioned, is somewhere around 14 to 15 months. We've now gotten rid of all of our 1-month pipe, which is good. But some of the, these are Band-Aids. What we need to do is get in there and line these pipes. And then, of course, the roots are also going after private laterals. And so you need to get those private laterals in shape. So there's a lot of investment there. And in the meantime, we're kind of stuck with having to clean these pipes more frequently, which takes obviously a lot of staff time and, ties up equipment, and it's wear and tear on those pipes. I mean, cleaning those pipes with 3,000 PSI water doesn't improve their condition either.
So what does lining it entail, or what does that look like?
Oh, I have some video of that further down, so I'll get to that. I don't want to ruin the surprise. Our other root control programs are a chemical root control program. We did some root foaming earlier this year, last fiscal year. Right now, we're pausing for this next fiscal year. We're just going to do our normal cleaning program as we're evaluating the effectiveness of the root foaming. We're very conservative with how we use the root foaming agent because it's an herbicide that kills and dries out those roots. We use our GIS system to identify riparian areas, and we avoid those, and try and focus on areas with that significant root growth. The other interesting thing is we try and avoid pipes that are lined or PVC because the foam doesn't stick to it, and so our old clay pipes are more suited to foaming because the foam can stick to that clay. It has a little more texture to it. So it's interesting, like all the little intricacies of those cleaning programs. So the blue and the orange are accelerated root control programs. The green is the rest of our pipes. So 60% of our system is on a root control program, which is just shows Arbor City USA, Tree City USA, does cause us some more maintenance on our assets underground. So here's a little video of a root foaming activity and how that works.
So the foam keeps the herbicide in place?
Yeah, the foam is, the herbicide's suspended in the foam and it stays out in the pipe. So we'll end up cleaning the pipe before we foam, and then you don't want to clean the pipe for a little while after the foam because you don't want to wash the foam away. You want to give it some time to work. And then if the manholes are impacted, they'll actually fill the entire manhole up with foam as well to act on the roots entering the manhole. And so this map shows, and these dark blue lines are a little harder to see, is where we did root foaming earlier this fiscal year. And then, as Mr. Hagmark mentioned, we have other high-frequency mains. So these are ones that could have debris, could have a maintenance structural issue, or grease, or it could be a flat line, or one where we know there's a really shallow manhole, and so they're a little higher risk. So before 2025, we had 41 one-month mains. Those are 41 mains spread across the city that we had to send a truck to once a month. Not very efficient from a cleaning program standpoint. We had 107 2-month mains, 223 4-month mains, and 536 6-month mains. So we had 907 high-frequency mains that we were hitting throughout the year. And so that turns into about 2,600 cleaning activities because you're hitting the 1-month mains 12 times a year, the 2-month 6 times a year, et cetera. And so we ended up with this many high frequencies, partly because of our previous cleaning program algorithm, that every time we found we were using the findings, so the operators would report, oh, we saw medium roots. They're measuring the roots and the material that they're removing as they're cleaning the mains. Anytime we had these medium and high findings, we would elevate the cleaning frequency conservatively because that was one of the requirements of the consent decree we were under. We didn't have a mechanism to back these off. And so over the last fiscal year, our planning teams really, they're using all the tools available to us. We're using our smart cover system, our distributed level sensors, the video data, the cleaning findings, and we've been able to reduce our high frequency mains by almost 40%. So we now have 0 1-month mains. We're down from 107 to 21 2-month mains. 4-month mains have gone from 223 to 68. And our 6-month mains have gone from 536 to 478. That doesn't seem like as much of a reduction, but that's because a lot of the 1, 2, and 4 months have been kicked out to 6 months. But altogether, that drops our mains from 907 to 567, and that drops it from 2875 to 1626 cleaning events. That's a 43% reduction in high-frequency cleaning events. And what's really important about that is every main that we're not cleaning more than once a year allows us to hit another main. And so we've been able to, our last entire cleaning cycle took us 18 months, and we're projecting to do that, the entire city in 14 months, started in January.
Question. Does the use of herbicides affect the operation of the digesters in the treatment plant?
No, there's, herbicides been heavily studied, and it's a specific for the wastewater system. So moving on, we did unfortunately have some sanitary sewer overflows this past year. We just recently did some analysis on the last 5 years of SSOs, and we just got the numbers yesterday. So we found that 18 out of our last 50 sanitary sewer overflows were caused by roots. So either from getting into our system or from the private lateral systems. Almost half of the spills caused by roots were roots entering through the private laterals. So we have a little bit of a map across the city. Mouse is jumping on me.
How many spills did we have? I forgot.
I believe it's 8.
8.
So one at Argonne Circle. And so one of the things, just I'm not going to try and read everything, but we have a very, when you look at spills across the state, our spill volumes are relatively low because we have small pipe, and we're very good at recovering the volumes of flow. So we had one Category 1 spill where unfortunately it went directly into a creek, and it was not all recovered. But most of these Category 3s means that they did not reach the U.S. waters, and we recovered most of the volume. Category 4 is a new category that the state created, and these are statewide defined categories. Category 4s are under 50 gallons and fully recovered. So kind of the... Right at the lift station? Yeah, unfortunately, right at the lift station during our bypass operations testing, we had a little bit of a spill, and we self-report. We take that responsibility very seriously, and even if it was 3 gallons, we still reported it as an SSO. This one was on the west side, pretty low volume. Again, unfortunately, during our bypass operations at Braemar lift station.
Were both of those contractor spills?
One of them was our staff preparing, and then one of them was working with the contractor. This is our Category 1 spill. Unfortunately, it was an 850-gallon spill. We were able to recover everything but 136 that were made it in the creek. So I have links to CWIX, the California Water Quality Information System, which has all of our reports on there as well. And the spill volumes, they're very precise. The effort that our team does to go through to calculate these spill volumes, this isn't a shot in the dark. There's diagrams, there's depths, there's volumes. They're looking at the type of soil that it went in and what's the saturation rate of that soil to calculate how much could have percolated in the ground before they were able to recover it. It is a very rigorous number. It's not just a stab in the dark. These reports have gone, each spill reports is a dozen pages with drawings and diagrams. So just you see the numbers and you're like, how do they come up with that? And then the backup information is very robust. So this is showing our cleaning program through since January, showing our basin work and our high frequency mains across the town. And so we are on target to clean the entire small diameter system within 14 months. Some of the trunk mains are large enough that we don't have to clean them annually. They're on a 3 to 5 year cycle. Just a little description on influent infiltration. We've done a study we're wrapping up on looking at I&I or infiltration inflow. Inflow is flow that's coming directly into the sewer, usually through illegal connections. If somebody doesn't leave their cap off their clean out, water could be pouring directly in there. And through manhole covers. Infiltration is water that is infiltrating the collection system through cracks in the pipes, defects, and that kind of thing. And so when we have these rainstorms, and like we just had this weekend, and El Estero's flow goes from 6 million gallons per day to 16 million gallons per day is what we ended up treating on Saturday. That's inflow, because that's getting the system directly. Today's flow is probably still over 10 million gallons per day, and that's infiltration. So you'll see a spike on our daily flow graphs, and then it'll slowly trickle down as the infiltration continues to stop. So how we investigate that is we use our smart covered level sensors across the city to identify general areas, identify basins like I talked about earlier, and then we can go in and do smoke testing in the basins where we find there's high elevated flows. So this is smoke testing we did back in August in the San Roque area. And they have a blower and they blow smoke, kind of trying to pressurize the collection system a little bit. And the smoke will go into the sewer and then up the residents' laterals, and it will come up out of if it comes up out of the roof vents, then that's a good sign. But if it comes up out of the cracks in the ground, we can identify issues. So here's one. There's one right here. This is one of our mains. It's hard to see, but our sewer manhole cover's right here next to that. Here's one. This is a clean out cap missing. So that's a potential, not even just a source of I&I, but that is also a potential source of pests that could enter the system or exit the system as well. Here's another one under by somebody's house, and then a floor drain we found that was identified in someone's backyard patio.
How do you find these? Like if they're on people's private property, do people call?
You can see the smoke coming out. We get calls. One of the unintended consequences we found was a resident called 911. Their smoke was coming out from behind her refrigerator, and her ice maker had a drain, and there was no P-trap. And so not only, that's a public health potential issue, they could have sewer gases coming in their house, or a potential path for vermin to enter the house. So there's unintended consequences of finding that was kind of a good find.
Yeah.
So that's some of the smoke testing we did this year. Unfortunately, we didn't find as much potential sources of infiltration that to correlate with some of the I&I we found in that area, so we're still doing some additional investigations. How we identified those basins, and you can see a cluster of smart covers in the San Roque area, is that San Roque area was one of the areas that we've previously identified with higher I&I. But we do have about a network of almost over 50 smart covers throughout the city, covering areas for base flow monitoring for continued I&I monitoring, but then we also can relocate them to look at for hotspots. So areas where we know we have high risks, areas where we may have had a 1 month main that we want to extend the cleaning frequency to 2 to 4 months. We'll put a smart cover on there, we'll monitor it for a few months and validate that the new cleaning frequency is effective and we're not at risk there.
So a smart cover is a flow sensor?
Yes, it's a level sensor. It's mounted under the manhole, and it has a it's actually a satellite communication radio on the cover. And so if you see a manhole cover with what it looks like when a little traffic, like the little reflectors on the top of it, that's actually the transmitter for that smart cover mounted directly on the manhole. So they look a little different. Here's what the output of that level smart cover is. So here's a flow, shows the diurnal flow profile of the wastewater system at, this is right coming into the plant. That's Cabrillo Boulevard at Chase Palm Park. So that's one of our main trunk lines coming into El Estero.
Clear pattern.
This is I think it's about a month. Yeah, so it's showing the diurnal. This is nighttime, daytime, as people are waking up and starting to use their facilities. It's a very familiar pattern for us in wastewater. And so we have identified, we have procured some additional ones this fiscal year, and so we're using those as our floaters to move around and identify those other high-risk areas. How am I doing on time? Okay. So we're spending between $3 and $3.5 million annually on capital improvement for mostly rehab. And so the video on the left is showing the rehab process. And so inside the factory, there's a liner material. It's a felt with a plastic coating around it. And so they inject a epoxy material into the liner. They soak the liner material. Then it's flexible and soft. They keep it refrigerated. And then they'll bring it out to the site. And what's interesting is they have when the liner's being prepared, it's inside out. And so when they invert it and push it into the main, it gets inverted, and then they fill it with steam, and that cures the pipe in place. So that's a cured in place pipe. It's very confusing because it's also our CIP program has very similar acronyms there. Yeah, and it goes inside. It lines inside the pipe, and when the epoxy hardens, it is structurally sound for our gravity pipe.
And then, so does that also then reduce the?
It does reduce the interior
size.
diameter of the
Yeah.
pipe, and so that's one of the things that we'll have to evaluate in the future. Is we have this whole list of mains that we have to rehabilitate. I have the results of a new flow study, and now we're going to look at, same like water's looking at with the water use study. We can look at that and look at our capacity program. And so do we have capacity in that main to line it and reduce the interior diameter that could reduce the flow that it could handle, or do we need to upsize the main? So that will help us to make that decision whether we repair, rehabilitate, or replace.
So soon after they do that, then they send in a little robot that goes in there and they cut out each one of the laterals that were coming down into the main.
Yeah, so this is
Through the, that's so cool.
so this is an example of a main that is a candidate for rehab, and then this is what it looks like when it's done. Unfortunately, there isn't a lateral there that's cut out that we could, so I'll have to look for an image of that for next time.
Do you have to stop flow when you're doing the rehab?
Usually there's enough capacity in the lateral. When they do that, they'll just line through it. The lateral will start to fill up, and that's why they need to, as soon as this thing cures, they'll put the robot in there to cut out the...
Yeah, so, depending on the
I know, right?
super high flow mains, they may bypass, but most of the time we don't need to bypass. And so the other thing we're working on is, in addition to lining the mains, we're rehabbing manholes. So here's a manhole pre-rehab and post-rehab line coating. So this is a spray-on coating or roll-on coating that they add to the manhole. And so our goal is to have no open ends when we're done rehabbing this system. And so you'll see the map like this where there's, we're going to line this line and rehab these two manholes. The lines between here have already been rehabilitated on previous projects, but now we're going in and sealing the entire system around it. So in addition to the rehab, we did 71 repairs to the sewer system. There was a portion of emergency repairs and scheduled repairs. And I have some images of an emergency repair. So this was an emergency repair identified by our CCTV contractor. They notified us of a significant defect. So our crew went out to go mark and locate, and they entered the manhole or the pipe from the opposite manhole. And when they did that, they found another fracture 20 feet down the main. So we went back and marked the entire main, and replaced that 21-foot section of main. So now that those two condition 5 defects are gone, but we're still going to keep that main on our list for rehab, and we'll actually eventually line through the entire main, because even with the repair, the Calder coupling here is a potential entry point for root, so we'll want to line through that and make the whole pipe all sealed up when we're done. And as Mr. Hagmark mentioned earlier, our system is probably there's probably another 250 miles of private lateral in the community. As a reminder, the laterals are owned from the home to the connection point in the city sewer by the homeowner or business property owner whose lateral is serving their property. So this shows that layer, and their responsibility of that. So sewer lateral maintenance is critical. If you can find the same thing with our system, if we can find the system early, or the problem early, we can do a repair. Rehabilitation would be another less expensive option, or eventually you might need to do a full replacement. And then depending on the age of the lateral, you could have a 4-inch cast iron lateral that's not only plugged with material, but it's corroding, and that's causing a deterioration and restriction in the pipe, which would cause you to replace that lateral. One of the new things that our SLIP team's done this over the last almost 2 years is we have a condition rating scale now. And so that helps us triage the defects that we're finding and kind of plan and offer an opportunity for the homeowner to get into a maintenance program instead of having to rehabilitate or replace their lateral. And then getting into the connections, when we find bad connections, we can identify these as we CCTV our system, because the connections are integral to our system. So you can see in this Y connection, this is the sewer main, and this fitting is the Y connection that connects to the private lateral. So there's two effective options that we provide to the city or to the customers. Is an option 1 replacement is the plumbers does all the work and prepares the excavation, and then the city contractor comes in and does the replacement. Or there's an option 2 where our city contractor excavates, replaces it, and fills it back in. And so across the city last year, our SLIP team helped, I don't know the exact count on this. Ms. Farrer, do you know the count? Roughly 500 connections were replaced over fiscal year 2025 out of 25,000 connections. So, and so the option 1s are in red and the option 2s are in blue.
And just a reminder on that, we are working on a SLIP business case. So we're taking a wholesale look at the whole SLIP program, looking at making some changes to it, and we will be coming back to you in 2026 to talk about a draft, at least, of what we're thinking with that program.
Thanks. And then just want to touch on our FOG program. We have a wastewater compliance specialist whose almost full-time job is dealing with the over 500 FSEs, food service establishments in town that he inspects routinely. And so, there's inspections when a building permit is pulled, he's getting notified, he's providing input before they build. And so one of the images he shared with us was, and I thought this was grease when I first saw it, but this is actually the concrete being degraded by hydrogen sulfide, and I've never seen this before, where it's actually degrading and foam and almost foaming. And so this shows before rehab and after rehab of the grease trap. And so he's making sure that the grease traps are not only in good condition, that they're getting maintained properly, pumped out on a routine basis. If you drive around downtown early, you might see you might smell them before you see them, the pumper trucks, because this is one of the less good smelling operations that we have.
And this program has been immensely successful because it's almost eliminated all of our fog-related spills. We did for a while, this was one of our leading causes of spill was fog, and so, yeah, it's been immensely successful.
That was going to be my question. Have there been any fog-related blockages or spills?
Not recently, no.
That's awesome.
So there has been one where there was debris, and we saw some fog built in, but there was none that I'm aware of with fog being the primary cause anymore.
That's great.
All right, we're going to switch gears into the treatment plant, and Mr. Muntz has graciously offered to. I'm just going to drive from now on. So.
Thank you. Good morning. It's hard to follow that up. My name is Adam Muntz. I am treatment superintendent for El Estero, and I'll be presenting for the El Estero Water Resources section of this report. So to start, we have our process overview diagram. I think a lot of you have seen this before. What we did was tied this in with our YouTube videos that we have describing the different process areas. So our first video is just a general overview. We move on to having videos for each of the individual process areas. Can you go to the next slide? So what we did was we selected, you can see the box on the process diagram, and it shows all of those process units that are described in each video. So you can move through and see on the process diagram all the videos. We did finish this year our solids handling and cogeneration video. This was the last in the series for the El Estero videos. So it's been a really useful tool to have for people who want to see the plant but aren't available to come see it. And also right now during heavy construction, we're not providing tours, so it's a resource to defer to for people to see what we do and how we do it. And so it's really nice.
And altogether, there's about an hour of content on, and it's all on the city's YouTube page. So we're not going to show all these videos. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we talked about that. It's too much. How much time do I have, Thomas?
13 minutes.
Got it. I will try to turn and burn. So some operational metrics. The first one we have is our average daily flow and average daily peak flow. Those black bars show the min and max for those. You can see the rain events. Moving across, we had, well, now we're on belt press, average daily tons, nothing really to see there. Gas production, pretty standard. That's in million cubic feet per month. One big change we've had on the power side is in the green shaded area, you see our utility power consumption. Blue shaded area is our cogeneration, Cal Power kilowatt production. And you see that increase in production percentage. We do have a new owner operator for Cal Power. They've been a great partner, and they've been able to increase the output of the motor without an increase in gas production, just from optimizing the operation of the motor. And so that's been great. I was interested why it dropped off there towards the end of the fiscal year, and there were just a couple of days where we had maintenance issues, and so that's why it dropped off there. Regulatory compliance. So in July, we had one violation. It was a deficient monitoring violation, kind of an interesting one. We shipped that off. There was a delay in the shipping, and the ice melted, and it resulted in the labels coming off in the ice chest. So we did sample anyways. The samples were valid, but because the labels came off, you lost the chain of custody. And so it's a deficient monitoring. So it was interesting.
Yeah, so all the samples were in compliance. We knew they were like, there's 3 days of samples, and we didn't know which one was which. So, they were all less than detectable, but they all had a different reporting limit, and so we just couldn't assign the sample to the result to a specific sample. But we were in compliance for that period.
August 2024, we completed the permit renewal submittal, and so that was a great day. Lots of work went into that. September 24, we had 2 violations, one deficient monitoring of oil and grease due to a late sampling event, and one due to an effluent fecal coliform exceedance. October, we had another deficient monitoring of enterococcus due to media for the analysis being found expired. I'm trying to move through these quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. December, we had 3 violations, deficient monitoring of total coliform for recycled water due due to a sample being dropped before it was analyzed. And then we had one exceedance of pH and one exceedance of chlorine at our commingled effluent due to desalination plant operational issues. And so both of those were due to issues during startup of the desal plant. So it's unfortunate. March, we had one violation for deficient monitoring of TSS due to the sample being invalidated because it was not stored at a correct temperature. And I think our last one was June, deficient monitoring of oil and grease due to a sample not being collected every 6 days.
Okay, I just had a quick question up top there. There was something about the sea level rise
Yes.
extension approved. Could you just
So
say
all
what
it
that
was we requested an extension for our annual permit. Josh,
Yeah.
you want to touch on?
So I just wanted to touch on that. As part of our NPDS permit renewal, the last one we had, we were required to do a climate adaptation plan. And as you know, we're working on that document, and Mac's actually going to council on December 9th. And then we'll be circulating a draft for public comment. And that is what the state, it's what we were required to submit back in August. Unfortunately, we weren't done with it yet. We did give them a preview, it was in it, and they did say, we're fine with, you guys are making good progress. So we remain in compliance with our permit on that issue. It's just, and we'll hand it over to them as soon as we finalized it.
And I do want to speak to a lot of the deficient monitoring, just to add some context. Our lab went under an extraordinary effort of their going through a new ELAP certification process last year, and so they are working at a high capacity level. With the new fiscal year, we were able to secure 2 additional lab staff. We have relied heavily on hourly staff that can only work 1,000 hours a year. And so we've been able to transition from those hourly staff to permanent full-times, 2 additional full-time analysts. So hoping that with the additional staffing, more stable staffing, where we're not turning over these analysts every 1,000 hours, that a lot of these deficient monitoring and other kind of lab issues, the sample not being stored at the correct temperature was a refrigerator malfunction, unfortunately. So hoping that our additional staffing will mitigate these issues that we've faced so far.
So we're going to get into our maintenance activities. Kind of the theme here is these are more complex maintenance activities that the team has started taking on. Historically, we would contract out a lot of these activities because they're complex, larger projects. Starting off with the influent pump station, supply fan replacement. I'm going to just kind of touch on some of these and breeze through others. This one I want to touch on, aeration basin diffuser replacement. So in our aeration basins, there are, I think, 1,091 diffusers in each of 6 basins. They're at the end of their useful life, so we procured new diffusers. And we had the operations staff go in and pull out all the old ones and put in new ones. It was a huge effort. We did it in-house. We saved a ton of money by doing it in-house. Remarkably, the cost of the diffusers didn't go up much from when we initially bought them 8 years ago. So that was a pleasant surprise as well. But it was a huge undertaking. You can see those guys are all bent over. I definitely had everybody had the horseshoer back for a little while there, a couple months. And we had to rotate through the basins. It was a big effort, but we saved a ton of money, and it was a really successful project. Next one, Thomas. This is another interesting one. So the hydrogator, which is what removes grit at the plant, it commonly gets clogged, and when it does, the overflow had gone to the channel, which leads to the primaries, which means those solids are now going to go to our digester and fill the digester, and that's why we do the digester cleaning. It's not ideal. So what turned out as a simple project to reroute that drain back into the grit chamber became a headache because we had a stairway in the way. The stairway was a concrete stairway. What you see here is the new stairway. But even eliminating the concrete stairway to get the right drop and keep the elevation required for that drain to work correctly, we had to make a custom stairway. You can see where that pipe goes through. That's a custom mount. And then we found a stairway that would work that we mounted onto that custom mount so we could route that through. Really, they got put to the test this last rainstorm, and everything worked great. And so instead of solids going into the primaries, into the digester, they now go back into the grit chamber. We can fix whatever's going on with the hydrogritter and then remove those solids instead of them passing through the system. This was another great one, primary clarifier head shaft replacement. So this is a giant steel drive shaft that weighs 1,000+ pounds. It keeps the main sprockets on the clarifier chains and drives in alignment. And so we needed to replace that on one of the primaries. We had to bring in, this is a city boom truck actually. This isn't a contract crane. We did this all in-house. It was a great project and pretty complex. Blower check valve replacement. That's another good one.
This is our several ton bridge crane that we're able to have an opportunity to use because we don't get to use it very often. So.
Yeah, this was early in the morning. We had to do this because we had to kind of shut down the air. EQ pump replacement. I can breeze through that one. This is another great one. So hypochlorite line rerouting. So we have 2 hypochlorite lines that go from the sodium hypochlorite station over to the secondary effluent. As part of our CCC project, rehabilitation bypass project, we needed to install an LAS line from that same area back across. And we found that if we rerouted one of the lines through the secondary containment in the other line, we could utilize it in the project, which eliminated underground trenching, installing a new line for this project. So the maintenance team went ahead and rerouted that line. It was great savings going towards that CCC project. So that was a cool one. An administration building gas line replacement. So our lab staff notified us on a weekend. They kept smelling natural gas. Maintenance came in, found several pinhole leaks on top of the admin building. And so gas was getting carried in through the HVAC system into the lab. We did patch repairs on that, but there were a ton of holes, so we went through and replaced several hundred feet of natural gas line distribution to all the HVAC units on top of the administration and lab buildings. And again, all this was done in-house. Installation of cellular network backup. So this is a wireless backbone. Out at the lift stations, before this was installed, if we did have a Cox failure or someone did have a a cable line, we would have no communication with those PLCs. What this did was create a wireless backbone, so if there is a failure on the hard line, this will take over and restore communication, and we have communication in the event of some kind of catastrophic failure. Primary sludge bypass valve replacement. This was underground valve that we had quoted $18,000 to replace, so we decided to do it in-house, and it was a great little project. Sludge handling building grading replacement. Biosolids. So the operators procured and constructed a canopy for our biosolids loading operation, which we went over last year. So we wanted to be able to run dewatering processes during the rain, and that canopy allows us to do that. Fog mix pump replacement. Just another maintenance replacement item. Sorry, I'm trying to blow through these. On to capital. So our big project right now is the El Estero Electrical Renewal Rehabilitation Project. We spent most of fiscal year 25 just doing investigative work, getting the contractor settled. The contractor did have different routes they wanted to take from the plans, and we agreed those were viable. So what we did is a lot of potholing, checking what was underground and making sure that those new routes were viable, and they were. Also going down in the galleries and finding routes in the galleries with all of our existing infrastructure for all these new conduits. And they began trenching. As you can see here, this is some of the trenching they're doing. They're laying conduits. It's amazing how many abandoned pipes you find at El Estero. It's like a boneyard of just abandoned pipes, because we're like going, what's this pipe? It's not on the plans, and what is it? And then, oh, it's broken over here, and it's just underground from we don't know when. And so that's like day to day. Found one yesterday. El Estero SCADA upgrade project. So we were having failures with our servers for our SCADA system. That kind of was the driver to get new servers, get new computers, and also just upgrade our entire SCADA platform, bring it up to modern standards. So we're working on that. Chlorine contact chamber bypass project. So this project was awarded, contractor mobilized, we began site investigations, and we found that that the design was not constructible, unfortunately. And so, due to price increases and delays, the project was ultimately canceled, and we are currently taking everything we learned to conform plans and bring that all into a package so we can go and rebid the project and get it back out there. Sorry, I kind of blew through. I could talk about any one of those things for quite a while, but Josh has given me the eye. Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, wow. Thank you, everybody. I mean, this is a fantastic presentation. I think with the visuals and a lot, it makes it really, really very interesting. Yes.
Follow-up question, if I could. On the biogas recovered, the 65.7 million cubic feet, is there any additional gas that could have been recovered?
The only time we flare gas is at this point is when we're doing maintenance. And so our flares are sized for the full capacity. We try not to flare any gas during the day. We try recover as much as we can. The cogen operator has like before construction has about a 99% uptime rate. So we do a very good job recovering the gas.
And then the same question for the biosolids. I guess we capture as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, all the biosolids are getting sent off-site for composting, and so they do have a beneficial reuse after that.
Just comments to echo the wow on the whole presentation, and love the story map. I mean, just love that, and how you can update as you go, and then it just tells the complete story. Really want to commend you on the in-house know-how, ability, proactive. It's really incredible. I mean, having toured some of these facilities and, all the things that you point out that we put this and we put this and we rerouted this. And it's really incredible, all those different examples. But also, please take care of yourselves and be safe. Some of those things I thought, well, maybe safety first. Yeah, but just incredible. And what a fun place to work, where you have all those opportunities for really hands-on problem solving, and then to get to see it all the way through. So that was really fun. This whole presentation, so fun. And the graphics, all the graphics in there too, of the pipes and the effluent pipes and all the different videos, and just like really incredible.
I'll second everything that you just said in that regard. I had written those things down. And to just note that you had to do all this. You can't shut down for 4 months to do a project. You gotta keep going. So just amazing. Great presentation, great information, incredible year.
Also, kudos to the sewer group, because, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of, tough work that you guys do. So, yeah, really great, fantastic. It makes it exciting to see sewer lines. Any other comments? Yeah.
I did have a follow-up question. So we talked about different development and construction and population rates for the water supply. And maybe it's not a question for today, but how is our wastewater system equipped for these RENA numbers and for what we're expected to achieve?
That is a great question. Thank you, Liaison Sneddon. We are now that we have all of our data on the structural, we have our current flow profiles. We have done, part of our flow study was looking at using the housing element to project flows out to about 2050. And so we have identified areas where we have limited capacity and may need to do some upsizing. And so we are up. This is because of the consent decree over the last 15 years, we've been very focused on cleaning and improving pipe condition, but now we really need to look at how the system operates and the capacity program. So we're starting to expand our capacity management program to address those needs.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one other comment, because I've been on the commission for a couple of years at least. When I first came on the commission, I know, Joshua, you remember, Wastewater kind of felt like it was out of sight, out of mind, and it really did get the attention that it deserved in that regard. I just want to compliment everybody in management and staff that basically has brought it up to essentially the level now that I really think it always deserved. But I've seen the growth, and again, it's just incredible. I'm really proud of the staff that's out there doing the work they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
Chair Keller, we have no public comment on this
Oh,
item.
bummer. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. So on to our department update.
Yeah, and I'll make it quick. I know we're running out of time here. Storm update. We got through that. We did not have any major spills. We did not have any major equipment failures, and we didn't have any injuries. It's impressive, and it was really quite impressive for our first storm of the year. I do have to say that our ESW was incredibly busy, and again, that's a rotational staff, but we happen to staff all weekend, right? We're doing evenings and then all weekends. We had over 70 calls for service, varying from stormwater issues. There was a bunch of stormwater manholes that blew off because the water couldn't get out at the beach. The sand was blocking it until it pushed out of the way. The manhole lids came off, and so he's out there trying to put the manhole lids back on. Just a wide range. People really deeply concerned, like the water coming up and, various flooding areas needing sandbags and things like that. So just kind of fills that gap between fire department, police department, and then, this person our ESW is really filling that role of all other things. Traffic control, we're putting out barricades, closing off areas. I will put a plug in. We really did a concerted effort for the last few years now, trying to put up barricades to close off areas that we know flood, to try and keep people from driving through there, because it really isn't that their car could get stuck, but really the wake from their car driving on those flooded streets starts to damage commercial and residential properties. So really now needing to kind of help the public understand why, because I think if I'm like, oh, I could drive through that, but it does have ramifications, and unfortunately we don't have time to put a police officer at each one of those. They're busy responding to other calls. So just using this opportunity to talk about the importance of those things. Desal hardening, offshore hardening project wrapped up. Very successful. I thought we got a lot of good press out of that. It was really good coverage. We got to talk about water supply with them. We got to talk about desal status, talk about environmental impacts. Like, it was really great overall. And so yeah, I don't know if the commission had any comments on that. But then looking ahead, December agenda, climate adaptation. So we're going to have the draft report. We are presenting very high level to City Council on the 9th. And we'll be talking broadly. We're going to talk about water and wastewater, but we're also talking about just climate adaptation across the city. But we will be diving deep into it with our presentation to Water Commission, and it's going to be good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that's coming out of this, and setting expectations for what we're going to need to do. A lot of work built into that. We're going to be doing water supply update and management report, rolling that all together for December. And then we've got a few award of constructions. Victrace CEQA was put out there, so we've kicked off that process. I just want to highlight we have public meetings coming up. December 3rd is in person at the Louise Lowry Davis Center, and then we'll have it a December 4th virtual. Again, the idea is we're trying to get from the community, what are you concerned about? We want to make sure we're studying all of the major issues here. So we're traffic, noise, dust, you're worried about wildlife, whatever it is. We want to make sure this is the opportunity for the community to put their comments in on that, so that we make sure we study all that at the end of the day, have a plan to mitigate whatever impacts we've identified. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any public comment?
Chair Keller, we have no public comment on this item.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for your presentations. Okay, so we'll adjourn for today, and we'll meet again in December.
Thank you.